Hey fam, and welcome to the Happily Ever Active podcast, powered by Fit for the Magic, where Disney magic meets health and wellness. I'm Stephen Kabibi, your friendly personal healthcare companion, and I help Disney travelers walk more, hurt less, and enjoy the magic without burnout. This week, I am joined by my good friend Lisa DiNoto-Glassner to break down the 2026 RunDisney Walt Disney World Marathon weekend, where both Lisa and I completed the Dopey Challenge, which also just so happened to be my first RunDisney race ever, my first marathon, and my first Dopey Challenge. On this episode, we cover things like how the weather affected the way we tackled each race day, because that was very unexpected, how we navigated the extra early morning starts, how we completed the Dopey Challenge even though we felt very undertrained for the weekend. We shared our most special moments during the race weekend, and much, much more. Find everything, including my pocketbook guide, Disney Ready, your pain-free park survival guide, over at fitforthemagic.com. And if you learned something useful on this episode, please share the show and tell a friend. Okay, here we go. I'm very honored to have Lisa DiNoto-Glassner back on the Happily Ever Active podcast to talk about Walt Disney World RunDisney Marathon Weekend 2026, which just so happened to be my first Dopey Challenge, my first RunDisney race, and my first marathon. So what a fun time. But Lisa, thank you for joining the podcast. Again, so thankful that you're here to bring us your wisdom and your experience with everything.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be back. And like I said, I feel like I'm going to have as many questions for you as usually for me, because this was your first. I didn't realize this was your first marathon.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So my first, many years ago now, this was my 8th Dopey. So I've done it a number of times at this point. But my first Dopey was also my first marathon.
No kidding. So
yeah.
We finally share something in common.
Back in 2018. Yeah. So I don't think that's like super rare, because it's just like it eases you in, and quote unquote, as much as a Dopey can ease you into anything. But I'll just let you kind of lead the way in the conversation. But like, I would love to hear your thoughts as much as you'd like to hear mine, I'm sure, because it was your first one. So I'm like so excited to hear what you thought.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that, because that's a really good point, because RunDisney is a great entryway to get into running races, because it's just so much fun. I think that's the big overarching thing, is it's just so much fun. And I had never done a marathon before, clearly, and I've done a half marathon before. And a year ago when registration first popped up, I was like, why don't we use this as my jumping point into doing my first marathon? Why not? Let's just see what happens. And I feel like there's no other way to have that sense of motivation than through RunDisney. I'm sure there are a lot of other ways to do it, but I think RunDisney does it really well, to where you feel like, yeah, this is totally possible. Let's do it,
Yeah, I think the community is so wonderful.
Yes.
Like you said, the races are have sort of a fun factor. That's good. I think from the outside, I think sometimes there might be some intimidation, as much about the process of registration and bib pickup and expo, and they're really not once you're doing them. But I could see how from a beginner's or from a first timer's standpoint, the process even could feel a little bit intimidating. But that being said, if you're a Disney person, it's all the more reason to experience it, because it's such a very different way to experience the parks. Yeah. And also the 5Ks are completely untimed. There are people of all shapes and sizes. Most people can walk a 5K, and if you can't, you can kind of get yourself there within a reasonable amount of time. If you can do a park day, I would argue that you can most certainly do a 5K, because you're doing that sort of mileage, like you always say, on your feet during that time. So, and then I think once you kind of open the door to that 5K and see how accessible it is, and how there's all sorts of people out there, and how incredibly supportive the community is, and just seeing that your body can do that kind of a thing at that early hour of the morning.
We'll get into that too.
Right. It becomes, we'll talk about that too, of course. But I think the if nothing else, the extreme accessibility, I think, of the Disney 5Ks
Yes.
Setting aside like the process related intimidation that might be there for some people that, we can get rid of just with some, talk throughs of how it works. It makes it really easy to kind of get you to those longer distances and to feel like you can tackle those longer distances.
For sure. And then also there's that parallel. You kind of dipped into this too, of like, if you're already a Disney fan, or a Disney parks fan especially, and you're just about to go into your first Run Disney race, like, yes, there's a nervousness, and I felt that too, going to Wide World of Sports to pick up my bib and check out the expo and see what else is out there. Like, I had never been to Wide World of Sports either, so that that was a big thing for me too. It was like, this feels like a new park, so to speak, right? I have to navigate new grounds. So I was nervous, but at the same time, I was like, this is kind of exciting. It's like going to a new theme park of where you're trying to figure things out and you're kind of getting the lay of the land. And then you show up, at 3, 4 in the morning to go for the race, and you're nervous and you kind of do your thing. And then they do the countdown, the fireworks go off, and then all of a sudden you forget about all your nervousness and it's just fun.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, as well as Disney does everything else, they do this well, as far as organization and crowd control and entertainment and, all the good things that Disney does so well during a normal park day, they do really well with respect to their races, with as much with respect to like the entertainment on the courses and pre and post race and all this, the community and support as just how well organized the whole event is, because it's an enormous number of people, but they really do a very good job of making the whole process run really smoothly from start to finish.
Absolutely. And they like that's one of the ways that they really take away a lot of the nervousness of just doing your first Run Disney race. So it's incredible. It is incredible. Yeah. Really quick before we dive into that, because I do want to talk about that too, the entertainment, the character meet and greets. We'll dive into that, but let's quickly dive into weather, because weather was just so erratic. Is that the right word to use? It leading up to the marathon weekend, I think if I remember correctly, it was cold. Like, it got into the 30s. I think the weekend prior. So we weren't sure exactly what we were going to get. The week of the marathon, like on that Monday, it was foggy and cold. And then leading up to the 5K, it was still pretty cold. I think the 5K was cold. And then we got to the 10K and it warmed up quite a bit all the way up until the marathon, where, I think they had, am I right? They had to change up the course a little bit because of the weather, but they didn't change the course for everybody. It was a very interesting situation.
Yeah, and that's certainly happened before, that they have to cut the course like during the race itself, just to kind of protect the health of the people who are out there later in the race and are going to be out there in the heat longer and just out there for longer periods. So that's not super unusual. It certainly has happened before, and I know it can be aggravating for people who worked hard for their marathon.
Right.
But I'm sure that their Garmin's would assure them that they covered 26.2 miles that day anyway. But yeah, they cut Blizzard Beach, which is it's like, I think like less than 2 miles of the course. But by doing that, they can kind of just make sure that nobody's going to get sick out there. I know even as I was finishing, and you probably have the same experience. I was starting to see some people kind of down on the sides of the course and getting some help from medical support. So that support is there if you need it, which is great. They've got people on bikes on the course, as well as the medical stops throughout the race and before and after, if you need anything. But better safe than stubborn, I guess. So that it has happened before, and like you said, it went from, I think the 5K I was pretty comfortable. I've been through Dopey's where we're waiting outside in like 17-degree wind chills.
2 years ago, I think it was really, really cold. They had to change things up, right?
My first one, which was back in 2018, it was freezing. It was so cold. Like, I got more and more melodramatic each race. I think by the full, I was like walking around in like a full like comforter I'd gotten from Walmart the night before the race. But yeah, I think the 5K I was like relatively comfortable. The 10K definitely started to heat up a little bit, and the half was pretty similar. And yeah, the marathon was definitely got much warmer further into the day, and we definitely felt that heat since we were out on the course a lot longer.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what you were saying, like the organization to make sure that the runners are that they stay healthy, and then they're making sure that they care for the health of everybody. Like one thing that really surprised me was I think it was right after Blizzard Beach, because I still got to run we ran the perimeter of Blizzard Beach is what happened.
The
like
parking lot. Yeah, you don't go
Yeah,
in.
oh sorry, the parking lot.
Yeah, you
I'm
basically run the parking lot. One year we went in.
Baymax was there.
It used to be Wide World of Sports. You used to run through ESPN, which was super cool. People hated it, but I guess now we look back on it nostalgically, because there was like gravel and stuff on the course, and it was kind of rough to run on. But we miss it now because now we're in the Blizzard Beach parking lot instead. But I guess we need to make up that funny little extra mileage somewhere. But yeah, the sponges.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was getting at. The
I
sponges. Oh, such a welcome feeling right after getting out of Blizzard Beach there. But yeah, in terms of gear choices, like you kind of went into that too. Like I think I went into the 10K with a long sleeve and shorts because I was like, oh, the 5K was a little too cold for me. I should have dressed a little warmer. And then I went into the 10K and I was like, no, I should have dressed a little, for the warmth. And then for the half and then the entire marathon, like it was a lot easier to be like, okay, I know it's going to warm up, shorts and a short sleeve t-shirt was fine. But then hydration was a really, really big thing to keep in mind. Because sure. if you start dehydrated, especially in the 5K and then the 10K, if you're doing the Dopey challenge, then you're just you're spelling out more disaster for you for the half marathon and the marathon, because it's really hard to catch up on hydration. But again, Disney comes in clutch because the hydration stations are like every mile and a half. You've got the option of the Powerade versus the water for, I think, the half marathon and the marathon. Like on the marathon, I don't know about you, but I was getting Powerade almost every single station, and then maybe like 1 cup of water every other station, just to make sure that I get the sweetness out of my mouth. But getting the electrolytes, staying hydrated was so important to me, especially with the weather.
Yeah, and I tend to dehydrate more when I'm low on sleep. Like when I'm
for sure
when I'm tired, I know I like tend to dehydrate more, and so like you're prone to it that much more during a Dopey, since we'll talk about this more obviously as well. But since you're waking up so early, and it's tough to get yourself in bed, crazy early with everything that's going on. So you're going to be short on sleep, no matter how responsible you are about bedtime. So yeah, I was the same. I was pretty much sticking with water through the half. I'm not a big Powerade drinker, but during the marathon, they were giving out like the honey stingers, and I'm usually fine with them, but for some reason they were like overwhelmingly sweet to me during the marathon. I just like wasn't liking them very much, or my stomach wasn't liking them very much. So I too like switched to Powerade because like I was like, all right, I need to get like fuel in myself somehow. So I ate like half a banana. They give out bananas on the course a couple of times during the Fools. So I would eat like half a banana, or I could get down, and like a couple honey stingers. But I also switched to the Powerade for just to get some like carbs in myself in addition to the electrolytes and stuff. So
yeah. And in terms of fuel, I have my thoughts on the honey stingers and the bananas. I mean, I'm used to eating bananas while I'm going on like long bike rides, but I don't think I've ever had a banana while running. So that was an experience for me, which, by the way, I can't stress this enough. It's really important to figure out what foods work for you when you're on a run. So I'm not following my own advice when I say this, but I had my first banana on the half marathon for RunDisney, which ended up being fine. Like, one, I wasn't going for time, so I was okay stopping to walk for a little bit. But then also, just making sure my stomach can handle it while on a run is still an unknown for me. Luckily, I was fine. Yeah. But I did follow my own advice for the honey stingers. For people that don't know, the honey stingers, they make the waffles, but then on the course they had the chews. And when I first got that bag of honey stinger chews, I was like, I don't know if my stomach's going to handle this at all. I ended up just putting it away and saving it for after the half to eat as like a recovery snack to see how my stomach would do with it. And I felt fine. So after that, I was like, okay, I can have this for the marathon. I'm good. But that was my way of figuring out whether or not my stomach was going to be happy with it, because this is new food to me.
Yeah, I think I mean, there's so much like nutrition and hydration on the course that I think most people don't carry their own for the most part. I'll usually carry like I might like I know I can do like the Cliff Blocks and things like that. So I'll usually, at least for the full, I come in, I usually run in like leggings with pockets and my legs look massive when I walk into the marathon because I've got like my sunglasses and my like nutrition and like my salt tabs and like my phone and there's like so much stuff packed in there that I kind of feel like G.I. Jane when I see my shadow, which is funny. But yeah, I mean, if you're going out there for a PR or you're very new to this and like kind of don't know your body and how it reacts to things, you can look at the expo guide and it will specifically tell you like what's going to be on the course as far as nutrition and other things in the different stations, what's going to be available pretty specifically. So, if you're curious, like it's not going to be available 6 months out, but like when the expo guide comes out a few weeks before the race, you can at least like wrap your head around like what's going to be on the course and figure out if you want to take advantage of that or bring something along. I know people like will often have like friends and family cheering on the course and kind of have, or if you're in a running group or something like that, there'll be people on the course that can give you things along the way, which I know people take advantage of a lot. But yeah, probably not the best way to figure out what works and what doesn't.
For sure. And to add on to that, I think RunDisney also sends out an email either the week of your race to tell you what's going to be on the nutrition menu that they're going to be giving out. So that helps too. Speaking of, having people cheer you on, can we talk about that really quick? Because I think that was one of the most special experiences on RunDisney because, so I'll share my couple of stories, but I think for the half marathon, I dragged my parents and my wife out. My parents were visiting for the week from California and they knew I was running the race. So they were totally cool with staying home while I was racing in the morning and then we would spend the afternoon together. But for Saturday for the half marathon, I was like, come on, I think it'll be fun for you guys to stand along Main Street, USA, right as the sun's about to rise. Yeah. So my wife being my wife, she goes to the Disney parks all the time. She helped them get to Main Street, USA. So once I got there, along the way, my wife was texting me exactly where they were. And I caught up to them. And the first thing we did, of course, was take a picture together. So that was a very, very special moment. I remember, I remember running away from that and I was like, that's one of those core memories that's going to just live in my mind forever, rent free. Like, I'll think about that and I'm going to be like, that's why I did RunDisney, because of a moment like that. And then as if I couldn't ask for a moment like that again, like I ended up running into a couple of our friends from WDW radio community. And when I found them on Main Street, I was like, no way. What the heck? No way. I had to double back. I saw them, I said hi, and then I was like, wait, hold on. I need to take a picture. So, moments like that really made things special. And of course, running through Main Street USA is already special in and of itself. But yeah, that was, man, I get chills just thinking about that.
Yeah, my family will normally stay. We have DVC and we own it at Boardwalk. So we're lucky enough to be able to book Boardwalk the 11 months out for the race because Boardwalk goes like so fast. Right. Because it's the one that we run by. We run by it for the 10K and also for the full. It's like mile 24.8 of the full marathon. So my family will typically stay at Boardwalk through from Expo until right after the races and just kind of leave me at the house to myself, and I'll kind of pop by and see them when I can, but otherwise have quiet in the house to get rest and organized and stuff. But yeah, that's being able to see them, cheering at Boardwalk is always amazing. And, like you mentioned, the folks from WDW Radio, our friend Lou Mangello actually has a running team that benefits Make-A-Wish. He's got his dream team, which does great work. And he and other people that are involved in the community will be along the course in different stations, and they'll tell us in advance kind of where they're going to be. And they've always got a bag of all the stuff you might need, or, if you have an emergency on the course. And obviously it's just nice to see a familiar face on the course. But setting aside even your own friends and family, just the cheering presence is so amazing, not just at the start and finish, but to me, like, if you're a Disney person, like, you either have to do a race that goes down Main Street or at least cheer it once. Like, it's such an incredible experience. Like, going through the gates for Magic Kingdom, like coming through and that like bend, around the, where the flagpole is, and then down, and then when it just opens up and you can see like just the throngs of people cheering along Main Street, and the castle's in front of you, and the music is blaring, and like I always have this like moment of like you get like emotional, and there are people really cheering at the different resorts, and but there's like a fair amount of road time, obviously, because you're talking about 13, 20 or 26-mile races. So you're on the road a lot, and you're kind of like alone with your thoughts. Or if you're running with people, I usually run solo, and you're kind of alone with your thoughts for like miles and miles and miles and miles. And then you get into the park and it's like, oh my gosh, like I remember like I'm at Disney
People
World.
exist.
Yeah, and you like have these moments where like you going down Main Street is just, it's such an emotional, incredible experience. Like to be on that like energy high of like being really far into a race that you've worked so hard for, and like turning that corner and like seeing the castle and like all the people cheering who've like come out at the wee hours of the morning before sunrise to see you. But then also like the later parks, like for me, Animal Kingdom was emotional. And Epcot was emotional because it was like much farther into the race. And like when I went into Animal Kingdom, even like as many times as I've done it, like when I turned into Animal Kingdom this year, I was like, oh my God, there's like people everywhere. Like they're just like lining and cheering. And sometimes it's just like people who happen to be in the park already, that just stop and cheer. Right. And then that final last mile through Epcot, when it's just like full of people cheering as you're finishing the race. Like I'm getting caught up. It's like there's nothing like it. There's nothing like those final miles of like, and they'll be playing great music. They're usually playing like I Can Go the Distance or like something great like that. And you're like rounding the bend, and there's just like all these people who are just park guests out cheering with signs and like happy for strangers. And yeah, it's really, really great.
Yeah, I can tell you as a former competitive road cyclist who's, I've done a couple of races where there's a few hundred people. I've done a couple of races where there's 1,000 or several thousand people. It doesn't compare to RunDisney and what the feeling of running down Main Street USA with all those people there, or down the finish line in Epcot with all those people there. Like, and I, at first, during the 5K and maybe even the 10K, I'd go to the finish line and be like, oh yeah, those people are cheering for their family members, their friends. And then I realized, no, they're cheering for every single person that is about to cross the finish line. I would make eye contact with people on the sidelines, cheering people on as I'm crossing the finish line. And I'm like, they're looking at me. Like that means a lot, and speaking for myself and other runners, like it's the most special feeling. You might as well be like an Olympic marathon runner there, because you're just feeling the energy of the crowd. You know what I mean? It's incredible. You're absolutely right. It's hard to describe unless you just do it.
Yeah. And like so many people have like signs and stuff that they've made. And the ones that always hit me in the fields are like the signs that are like, I'm proud of you, stranger. Like the signs that like say something along those lines. And it's just like, it's because I don't know. It's just, there's just something like so human about taking on a marathon or taking on anything like that, where you're just like sort of going up against like your natural limitations and like challenging yourself in a way that like you don't have to, it's totally voluntary. It's just like, it's like the most human thing you can do is to take on something like that, and like just to be surrounded by so many people and in an environment like Disney that already does mean a lot to a lot of us, in and of itself. And to be in like that kind of a space, like I touched on it in the beginning, but like, if you've been to Magic Kingdom 100 times and you've never run a race, like it's an entirely different way to experience the feeling of the parks. That's why I think like, anybody, no matter what shape or size or fitness level you are, like if you're a fan of this place, like you owe yourself a 5K, just
absolutely
bite the bullet, do the registration, wake up early one day and like just experience it, because there's just nothing like, that feeling of being in the park. And in that environment instead of like the usual park day.
I'm telling you, like, the minute that they do the countdown and the fireworks go off and you cross the start line to start your race, if whether or not it's the 5K or the marathon, you're going to completely forget how much you paid for it. You're going to completely forget the fact that you woke up at, before the crack of dawn for this, and you're just going to live in the moment, and it's going to be so worth it. So worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's I think it's like impossible to. I mean, because the races aren't cheap. They're not, and Dopey is certainly not cheap. But I think it's relatively impossible to look back on that experience over the course of like those 4 days plus the expo and everything else that surrounds it and not feel like you got your money's worth. I mean, there's so much that goes into it from start to finish, and the course entertainment that we'll talk about, and it's just. It's they are pricey, but like you can't walk away from it thinking you didn't get your money's worth.
You really can't. I agree. I agree. Let's quickly go into sleep because we've alluded to it a couple times now, and I knew what I was getting into in terms of when I'm going to be waking up, what times we're going to be starting. So like to give the logistics for the listener, generally the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon, I think they all start at 5 o'clock for Corral A to go through the start line. The marathon's a little different where they start at 4:30 for Corral A, and then they send each different wave of each different corral afterwards. But because the start time is 5 o'clock, the corrals, I think, close like 30 minutes before start time. Is that right? Something like that.
Yeah, well, I think... I think the rolling, it kind of rolls with when your corral is going to start. So I think later corrals close a little later. But like I think they closed the first corral at like 4:15. The first few days.
Oh, you're probably right.
Somewhere in there.
I
think it was like 4:15, and then that much earlier for the full. Yeah. And also, there's just like the process of like getting into Epcot and parking and the long walk to the section of the, through security into like the section of the parking lot where the race actually is. And there's all kinds of like pre-race characters and stuff if you're interested in that. So I don't know, like what time did you end up trying to get there?
So for the 5K, I woke up at 2. I got to Epcot at 3, and then I stood around for, an hour and 45 minutes, and I was like, I didn't need to do this. Because I personally, I wasn't really interested in seeing the characters, mostly because once I got there, the lines were already pretty long to begin with, and I was like, let's just figure out, let's dip my toes into this and figure out the lay of the land and, see how things go. For the 10K and the half, I think I woke up closer to 3:15 and then ended up getting into Epcot closer to 3:45.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of pushed it because I was like, really, I just want to get to the park, walk through security, get through the corral, and just get warmed up and ready to go. And then for the marathon, kind of the same thing, but then making up for the fact that we started a little earlier.
Yeah. That makes sense. I would say like that was a luxury that you might have had more because you were driving yourself.
Right.
Because even though like, I would just say like, even if you're staying at a resort and you're going to make use of transportation, while the transportation is reliable and there's a ton of, buses going back and forth from the resorts, like, things happen and bus drivers get confused or traffic happens or there's, things come up. And if I was staying at a resort and relying on transportation, I don't know that I would wait that long to just to like an audience member who might like be doing this for the first time. I might not cut it that close if I was relying on transportation, but driving yourself, you have a little bit more control over it, which makes sense. I do it a little earlier. I figure if I'm going to wake up, I'm going to wake up, so I usually will wake up closer to like 1:30 or 2, depending on what the race is and just how I'm feeling. And then it takes me like a little bit longer to get ready. I kind of go through my morning routine, even though it's 2:00 in the morning. That's just how my mind works. Like if I'm going to go on a race, I need to like get myself ready. And I actually will shower beforehand just to wake myself up and get myself, dressed in whatever garb I'm wearing and have, whatever to eat and have my, pre-hydration and all that stuff, and take my time getting there. And I do usually like visit a character or two, and I'll gear check. Like I've started gear checking
Right.
even for the shorter races. I used to
Okay.
just gear check for the half and full, but I've started taking advantage of it for the shorter races, just because you can kind of have your comforts with you a little bit longer, and I don't have to have my car key in my pocket. And it's so convenient because it's like it takes 2 minutes when you get there to gear check your bag, and then even more so than beforehand, it's nice to have it after. Like, because
Yeah,
I'll use like
for
a
sure.
JanSport, like a little JanSport, and just put it in the gear check bag when it's time to gear check. So I have a backpack, and they're giving you all this stuff like the medal and the Mickey ears and the box and the banana and the
Need somewhere to
Powerade and the
put it.
water. And it's just nice to have like somewhere to put your stuff. So for me, I gear check as much for like after the race as before. And certainly for after the race for the half and the full, because it's nice to have the like UFOs and
Yeah.
the change of stuff with you.
And that's a really good point. I mean, whether or not you're driving to the parks because you've rented a car, or if you're coming from a resort using resort transportation, like you're gonna want something to get into, to change into, at least to stay dry, to get comfortable after the race. So that gear check is really, really clutch, because after your race, you don't want to have to go back to your car or go back through resort transportation and then sit in whatever you were racing in for another 20, 30 minutes, however long it takes to get back to the resort before you change. To get comfortable immediately it gets you comfortable, clearly, but it also helps to start that recovery process too, because you're going to want to feel a little bit, you're going to want to start that recovery process as soon as possible after you finish that race. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and taking care of your feet, like not keeping them in the like wet socks. What he said, it's gross, but it's just reality. Like, your feet take a serious beating over the course of the 4 days, especially the last two. To be able to get the whatever socks and shoes you run in off and into like your recovery sandals or whatever you wear afterwards, I think is really nice, and it's like the best feeling in the world to like take them off and put like the UFOs on or whatever you wear.
For sure. And I love how you mentioned your morning routine, how you keep it. I have to say, my morning routine, I think it stayed more or less the same in terms of what I did, but I did condense things a lot more, because that way I can get a little bit of extra sleep. But like I still woke up, I still went straight downstairs to start making my coffee. I still rolled out the yoga mat so I can do a mobility routine and basically do my like joint and muscle warm up so that I feel a little bit more open with the race. And then from there, I did what I needed to do to get out the door. So yeah, I think a morning routine, even in the wee hours in the morning like that, really, really made things a lot easier for the rest of the day, because then you have a little bit less to think about. You feel a little bit more prepared. Your body is physically more prepared. Mentally, you're also more prepared, because then you can take on that extra early race to get through the day. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, like if I've gone through the usual steps that I go through every morning, like it kind of tricks my brain into it not being 2 a.m. It's like, all right, you woke up, you got yourself situated, you took a shower, you got dressed, you had your, whether it's your coffee or whatever, whatever you have in the morning. And, like in a non-rushed, non-frantic way. So for me, it's worth it to,
Yes.
I think I got up a little bit later, the later days. I did Dopey. Dopey was out all 4 races to meet like before the races. So I actually met him on the first. I waited in the line and saw him the first morning, and then I knew I wasn't going to be pressed to see him again until post marathon. I wanted to take a picture with him with all my medals. And then they would always have whoever was the theme of the race. They would have that character out pre and post race. And I like to get that picture like with the medal also. So after the first day, it was like, okay, if I don't meet I'm not like pressed to go stand in a bunch of character lines, because I knew I wasn't going to be pressed to see Dopey again, and whoever the theme for the race was, I would see afterwards. So it's good.
I have to ask, because I know, you had to take care of your kids after the race and you had your things to do. What's the typical like post-race routine? Because for me personally, I had my family back here at the house. So what I did was after the race, cool down, meet a character if I wanted to meet a character, and then get back to my car, go home, and take a nap before getting through the rest of my day. Is that, I didn't get to ask anyone else what they do. Is that something that people typically do? Do people go straight to the parks after? Like, how do people usually tackle that?
So I think a lot of people who are here on vacation will kind of go home and grab a shower and then head out to the parks for at least a little while, which probably
Okay.
isn't the worst idea in the world because you don't want to be
Mm-mm.
super stagnant afterwards. It's
For
good
sure.
to walk around a little bit. I was a little different this year than usual. I'm normally not a napper. I mean, I'm not a napper like in regular life at all. It just makes me feel like confused when I wake up. But I typically will try not to nap after the race or during the day because then I'm tired, at night and can crash. But I kind of
Yeah.
took it a little easier on myself this time. So, as a super local runner who also is a mom, my morning routine post race is a little bit hilarious because I have to like pick my kids up and take them to school. So after the 5K, I literally like ran the 5K, like saw people quickly and, exited stage left and like ran to my car and ran over to Boardwalk. Like I picked my poor kids who are like half on vacation and half still in the school week. At like 6:30 in the morning, I had to pick them up at Boardwalk and they had their like book bags on and got in the car. And I literally like drove my older son like straight to high school from the 5K. And then went home with my younger son, who's in middle school. He starts a little later. So he was home with me for a little bit. And then I took him to school and then came home and rested a little bit. And the 10K is like a similar situation because that was Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, thank goodness they didn't have school. If they had, they would have needed to find a different ride because I wouldn't have finished early enough.
Right.
But yeah, so, and then, and then later in the day, I will pick them up at the end of their school day and like take them back to Boardwalk to be with my mom. And Sam, her friend. So my there's a lot of sort of carting back and forth, even though I'm in the middle of Dopey, with that stuff. But I'm grateful that they're Boardwalk enjoying themselves, and I'm sort of quiet at home. And then Saturday I actually slept like a fair amount afterwards.
Okay.
Like I came home and like did my thing, and I have a site where I talk about the races, so I try to get the recap done and see the race pictures and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think I slept from like 1 to 4 actually on Saturday, which was
wow.
very, very unusual. Like I just crashed.
Yeah.
I think my body was just like, there's not a decision to be made here. You're just going to get some sleep. So I ended up crashing from like 1 to 4, which worked out well because then I ended up being up late, like trying to figure out my costume. So, or not costume, but just like what I was going to wear the next day. Ended up being up a little bit later than I meant to be that night, but it worked out fine because I had slept a little bit. So.
Yeah, that's so
funny.
funny.
I slept a straight 3 hours, but I was like in bed for a solid 3 hours in the afternoon, which
must have felt.
but
That still sounds like it feels magnificent just to lay there for just a little bit.
It was great, actually. It was great. It was great. Like I know we're going to touch on this like too, but both of us kind of came into this race weekend. I know I came into this race weekend like far less trained than I typically do. Like I typically follow a very, very, I do the Hal Higdon's training plans, and I follow them like religiously. And I always love like the routine that kind of builds into my life over the course of the training season. And like,
For sure.
I just love that process of training and like seeing like your VO2 max go up and like your strength go up and like the sort of mental, like you're starting to think that like the 8 milers are short runs, like it's the training process is just wild to me and I love it. But this has just been a very busy and unusual season for me. So it just took a back seat, by necessity. And then, so by necessity, this Dopey, and I know we said we were both going to talk about this. It was really just a Dopey about like listening to my body and taking care of myself and just making sure that like what I hadn't been able to do leading up to the races, I made up for as much as I could, just by making sure that like I was resting and I was running at very comfortable paces and not pushing it and like taking care of my hydration and like all the like mental and physical stuff I could for myself. So, so like, so lying down after the race and like, just resting for a few hours, something I wouldn't typically do. But yeah, it was just it was just a very different mindset this weekend, I think.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we go ahead and dive into it? Because like this is already a good point to go into. Like, yeah, I mean, both of us. So to give a little background on where I stood in terms of my training, typically my training consists of 3 runs a week. 2 of those runs are usually some sort of speed workout where I'm running maybe like 45 minutes to an hour max, and then on the weekends I'm going to be doing my longer runs, and I would build. The original plan was to start really way back when in like June, and then slowly build my longest run until I can at least hit a 3.5 hours or like closer to 4 hours of running to simulate how much I would expect to be on the road for the marathon during this marathon weekend. That is not what happened, not in the slightest. Life happens. So like I ended up not running for probably the better part of a month, maybe even 2. And by the time I came back to doing some more structured running, it was like 2 months left into the marathon. I hadn't run more than an hour maybe as my longest run. So I was like, okay, let's just focus on making sure I get some mileage so I know I can at least get through the marathon, and then I'll listen to my body and figure things out from there. So my longest run, I think, was about 2.5 weeks before marathon weekend, where I ran a little over 3 hours, which was satisfactory to me. It worked. It was good enough. And then from there, it was going through and making sure I don't go too hard on the 5K, because like, I'll tell you right now, I went through that start line and I caught the RunDisney bug, and I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. And then I was looking at my pace and I was like, I'm going way too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did the same thing on the 10K. Yeah. And I had to like keep looking at my watch to make sure I was not pushing myself, look at my heart rate to make sure I wasn't going too hard. But then also, I think the beauty of a RunDisney race weekend is the fact that there's so much entertainment. There's so many people cheering you on. There's so many characters to meet, especially on the longer distances, to where I used every single entertainment and character stop to make sure I would stop, take a break, take a breather, and remind myself, hey, you're here to have fun. And like, yes, you're competitive, but you're here to have fun. Listen to your body, or else it's also going to pay the price at the marathon, which it kind of did. We can go into that later. But that was my strategy for the weekend as I kind of figured things out, is like, okay, let's use these stops and make sure that I'm actually slowing down, enjoying myself. Because in the end, that's really what it's about.
Yeah, I think it was a similar situation leading up and during. I will say, like, don't try this at home. Like, do as we say, not as we do. Like, you're listening to 2 people who have done a lot, like, know their bodies very, very well. Like, yeah. I couldn't have done what I did over the course of Dopey weekend with the lower amount of training that I had leading up to it, had I not known my body very, very well as a runner. Sure. And like how to take care of myself, and like when I'm pushing it too hard, and like what I need to do to like support myself otherwise. So like, I definitely, like, if it's your first Dopey, your first marathon, like your first major race, like, don't listen to this. Like, take all this with like a very serious grain of salt. Because you really do kind of need to go in with a lot of knowledge of like your body and what it needs, and like how it operates, and like what your limits are. But that being said, like, it was the same for me. Like, I typically, like I said, I will usually do Hal Higdon's plans. Mm-hmm. I really like his running plans a lot. Similar structure, what you described. Typically it's like, you take Monday off, and then you do like Tuesday's a little shorter, Wednesday's a little longer, Thursday's a little shorter, Friday's off, Saturday's a long run, Sunday's a really long run.
Yeah.
And then like that structure sort of stays, but the mileage of each of those runs amps up over the course of the training season. So you go from Tuesday being like 363 to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday being like 363 to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday being like, what is it, like 8-10-8 or something. Yeah, and then and then the long runs on the weekends go from being like, whatever they are, 8 and
just
13,
gradually increasing
like,
mileage over time. Yeah.
And then there's a couple like, proper like simulations later, because a lot of Dopey is just learning to train on tired legs and like the mental component of that.
Yes.
And those are like, 2.5, 5, 10, 20 are the 4 runs that you do back to back a couple times later in the season. So, and Higdon's plans typically start like early September and then run through Dopey. And I will actually build that out into like July, usually as a lighter, like it's, the heat of summer and stuff.
Yeah.
But just to kind of get that structure in, because I miss it at that point in the year, I'll like build it out to there and just sort of like do a light version of that up until September and then sort of dive into the full Higdon plan. And I do that pretty religiously and love it and have always loved it, like over the course of the training season. But yeah, like I said, this season that just didn't happen. And I think like it wasn't like, it was just more sporadic. Like I was just kind of getting them in when I could. Like I was trying to get long runs in on the, weekends, but like just the nature of my mornings between like my son who gets up for school at 5:45 in the morning and then my younger son who goes to school at 9 in the morning. Like if I were to start the run after that, then the whole day's gone. So it just wasn't meant to be this season. And, life happens sometimes. I did what I could. I did what I could. I think like, I got a couple like 16 and 20 milers in like over the course of the training season, but it wasn't like, if there was just no like proper form to the training season, like I just did what I could when I could, and otherwise just tried to kind of like do Pilates and like take care of myself and do the things I could do. So yeah, I also like went in just kind of, I start in A also. And the same thing happens to me. Like I'll usually start in like the first wave of A and you're like with the super fast people. And so like you're surrounded by these people who are flying. And so you're flying and like all of a sudden it's like, oh God, I'm running like way faster than I should be to still be on my feet in 4 days. Cause you get like, you just have the excitement and the race adrenaline. So I pulled back a lot. I kind of purposefully, for a few of the races, dropped back to like the second or third wave of A, so that I wasn't like breaking out with like the elites.
Yeah, that was a good strategy.
Just to like, it's a very humbling experience to start with them. Like I've been fast in my time. I'm not the fastest right now, but I've been fast in my time, but like not fast like those people. And you do realize like when you start in the first wave of Corral A, it hits you at some point. You're like, wow, I'm going to do nothing but get past this whole race. Like, that's just because I'm at the front. So I'm not passing anyone. I'm just going to be getting past the whole race. So it's a very humbling experience.
It's a good way to put it, humbling.
Yeah, like I said when we started talking earlier, I don't remember if we were recording yet, but I think I ran like the entire weekend in like a zone 2 and 3, which was lovely.
Yeah.
It was lovely. I felt so good. Like I wasn't being overly hard on my body and I was resting a lot. And, I was finishing the races feeling really good just because I was running at like such a nice chill pace. And I didn't stop for every character, but I stopped for like the ones that I felt like stopping for. And I just kind of used that as a little break. I walked through the water stops. When I saw friends or family on the course, I stopped and gave them a big hug and took a picture and took my time like thanking them. Which unlike when I think I'm like PRing and I'm like, thank you as I fly by. It was just a very different sort of weekend, but I really, really loved it. Like I loved, I love the weekends too, where like I'm out there PRing and flying and feeling great about everything. But like just the nature of this weekend, like going into it, like having to just take care of myself and like PR and fun instead. It was just lovely. It was lovely. And the courses were just so good, like so good.
PR and fun. I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed. Everything was just so good. I'm gonna quickly share a little story. I guess we can call it a story of the race weekend, because it's a good example of listening to your body and really knowing what your body feels like as you're going through a half marathon and then an entire marathon. But like, after the 5K and after the 10K, I was feeling fine, like normal post-race, some soreness because you just put your body through all that running. And then after the half marathon, or during the half marathon, I started feeling a little bit of something in my hamstrings, and I was like, oh, that's different from what I remember being like some just regular running soreness. And that feeling in particular, I was like, that feels like a cramp coming on. It's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
So I had to pull back on my pace in the half marathon, and I was like, okay, as long as I don't push past this pace, I think I'll be okay. Come the marathon day, I was feeling fine until about 3 hours and 10 minutes in, 3 hours and 9 minutes in. I remember this because it was right before we hit the Blizzard Beach parking lot. And going into that day, I was like, at this point, you know, in my training, the longest run I had done was at about 3 hours and 5 minutes, maybe less than 3 hours and 10 minutes was my longest run. And I was like, if I can make it past 3 hours and 10 minutes and feel great, I'm going to feel amazing at the end. 3 hours and 10 minutes.
9 minutes.
Yeah, literally right at that time, I was like, "Oh, there it is." My hamstrings started cramping up again, and I was like, "Okay, let me pull back the pace." It only got worse. Oh. So I had to stop a couple times, stretch things out. I mean, I ended up finishing fine, but like, you know, when you're in a race this long, as long as it is a marathon, and you find that group of people that you had never met, but then you kind of are hitting the same pace together, and you're not talking to each other because you all are knowing that you're kind of in the zone, trying to just keep going to finish. You have that that quiet camaraderie. And when I had to first stop because of the cramp, you know, a couple people were like, "Come on, keep going, come on, don't stop, you got this." And I'm like, "No, I have to." And I felt bad because, you know, we were like a little posse for the marathon. And after we finished, I approached one of the people that were part of that little group that we had formed. And I was like, "I'm so sorry. I had to stop. I had a cramp." And she's like, "No, it's okay." As it turned out, like, I was her little pacer for the day. And, you know, like I said, we were helping keep each other in check. We had that camaraderie, and we were keeping each other going. So, you know, you never know what you're going to find, but at the same time, like, it's a really good example of, you know, the cramp that happened at the marathon. I kind of saw that coming from a mile away because it happened the day before, and I knew, you know, it was going to happen. So it happened, but I got through it, and I figured out how to get through it.
That's good. It's always nice. Like, I'm never actually going to do it, but like, I'm always like doing mental math about like at what point I could technically walk the rest and still finish. Like, in my head, I'm like, all right, like, if I was walking like a 20-minute mile, like, I've got like enough of a like enormous cushion at this point where I love that. Roll the rest of this. Like, I've never actually done it, obviously, and I hope I never have to, but I'm always doing like mental math. Like, at what point, like, am I definitely going to finish, even if I have to walk the rest?
I love that. I absolutely love that. Any other major points that you want to get through? Any other questions that you might have for me?
So what do you think? Like, do you think you're going to do it again?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
I finished the marathon that day, and I was like, all right, when's the next registration time? I think it's going to be in March. So yeah,
You think you'll Dopey again?
I think I'm going to do Dopey again.
Yeah. It's like, go big or go home, you know? It is such a like camaraderie thing. You know, it's like, you're all just delirious by the end. Like, it's such a ridiculous undertaking. Like, that by the time you're all at the full, like, there's just such a like, it's just such a good weekend. It's such a like bonding weekend, and like such a cool thing to undertake. Did you think you were going to be one and done, or did you think you were going to?
No, you know, so I think this contributes to like my entire attitude towards the marathon weekend in itself. Is like, I had a certain amount of expectation going into it because I had talked to you about it. I had talked to other people that have done it. But I also kept a very open mind going into this race weekend, and I was like, you know, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to enjoy it. So I didn't think it was going to be one and done. I didn't think this was going to be something I would do again, mostly because of the price point, but then like we talked about earlier, once you go through it, you realize like you get more than your money's worth out of this. So that's what made me go, okay, yeah, let's do it, because I don't think I mentioned this yet in our conversation tonight, but like this is the most fun I've had, or like the most exciting moments that I've had, multiple moments, in a very long time. Mm-hmm. And making those core memories was just extra special. And Disney just puts on an amazing event, and I just want to be a part of it again.
Yeah. And I think that's like an important point to touch on too. It just made me think of like, I always write about it afterwards, and I think it strikes a chord for a lot of people, is that like the post-Dopey blues are a very real thing. And I think like when I talk to people about running the races and training, like I always kind of in my advice, as a part of my advice, I always say kind of like have a plan for the next few weeks. Like, yeah. And even if that plan is to like write on your calendar rest, or like, some sort of a like little challenge for yourself that's not physical, like to read a book, or or do something with your work, or do something with your family, like have like a non-running goal to like kind of keep you vaguely occupied, for the next few weeks, and also like kind of like write that rest into your calendar, because it's hard. Like it's such a loving environment, and it's such a like wonderful environment, and it's such a big achievement. But like so many like big achievements after the fact, I think it's very easy to crash a little bit after the fact, and like to kind of be ready for that. And if nothing else, just like know it's normal is like, I think just as important as the pre-prep is like to know what to expect, not just physically, but also emotionally and psychologically afterwards, I think is really important. So I would just leave with that.
Yeah, I love that. And I kind of love that we're going to go ahead and leave on this point, because the post-Dopey blues are definitely real. And if you don't have some sort of plan to navigate through it afterwards, it can be a little difficult. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. This was great. I was excited to talk to you because it was your first. So, and we've talked about it so much. So I was excited to hear your thoughts. So I'm so glad that you enjoyed it.
Really quick, I guess before we close out, what was one or two of your most favorite moments from the weekend?
Oh gosh. I think, the new style of the race courses for the half and the full, where we now come in on the grand side and run past the water pageant on the water, has become like one of my big course highlights. Like I just love that entry into Magic Kingdom via the grand with the water pageant out. It's just beautiful. And then I love when we're exiting Magic Kingdom and you see Space Mountain over the water, because that's something that you just don't get to see. Normally, that's just not a place where you're allowed to be typically. So to see that gorgeous view of a Space Mountain reflected perfectly over like the still water, there's your exiting Magic Kingdom is really special. And other than that, it's just like those moments that we talked about, like seeing your family on the course and running down Main Street and like running into Animal Kingdom and Studios and Epcot with everybody cheering. It's just super special. So.
Yeah, those were all really, really good. That big reveal with the electrical water pageant, that was very, very special. I 100% agree. I agree. The little moments I had, people were taking photos with characters, and, we had DJs along the path and choirs and taiko drummers.
Yes, choir,
oh my gosh.
Yes. The taiko drummers and the choir. Like I should have mentioned those when you asked. Yeah. The running past, like I always get emotional with the taiko drummers, just because they're so talented and they bring in other people that are really great drummers. And like, it's just such a powerful sound as you're rounding the bend.
Yes.
And then, the choir. And I love that they do the choir now for all the races, that everybody gets that no matter what distance that they're running. As I was finishing the half, the choir was like belting out Party in the USA. And it was just like joyful. Like
That's
it was like
amazing.
the very final, if you've not done the races before, what we're talking about is that there's literally like I think they're usually like a high school that's visiting, but they're like a gospel style choir that's like singing like joyfully as you're finishing like the very, very last like few tenths of a mile of the race. And they play it on a speaker as you're coming through the final bend. So yeah, they were singing Party in the USA as I finished the half, and like everybody was just like dancing in the street while they were running, and like it was just like this joyful experience. And I know they do like We Are the Champions and stuff a lot, like that kind of thing too. So that's always a moment.
Yes, all of that. Then they had high school bands play, and I think one of my favorite, like I said earlier, people take photos with characters. They also had DJs, but they also had, I don't know if they were out when you were there, or if I don't know if they were there the whole time, but like when you're all running along Floridian Way right before you turn right to get into the Grand Floridian, I think it was in the marathon. There were two women. They were dressed up in like construction outfits, and they each had mics, and they were just heckling people.
Yeah.
I think that was great because, I came up and I was like, let's take a selfie, because why not? and as I was running away, I was like, I love you guys. And one of them was like, oh my God, he said he loves us, but he's running away. I was like, oh, whoops. But like little moments like that where I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that at all. But that really made my day. And then, I think one really, really special moment, I can't even remember where exactly it was. It must've been like mile 20 or mile 18 or something of the marathon. And I was alone at the time, and we must have been on like a main road, away from the parks. And I was like, wow, this is it. This is the last few miles. I'm about to finish my first marathon. I've gone through a half, a 10K and a 5K, and gone through all of this. Like, this is actually it. I'm about to do it. I think that was one of my most emotional points. Just being there and in the moment. And I don't know if I'll ever have that moment again because, it's a first. Yeah. You never know. Yeah. But like in that moment, I was like, I don't think I'll ever witness this moment for myself again, being a lot of firsts. So that was very special for me.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you like stopped and like took it in, like that you not literally stopped, but like that you mentally stopped and like appreciated that moment. And I think like, it could be your first time or, this was my 8th Dopey. But it's like, you're always in a different stage of life and like facing different challenges. And, I've had races that were my first that I was so proud of. I've had races where I felt like stronger than I ever had before and was faster than I ever had been before. And that was special. And this time around, it was just like still being able to like mentally do it, even though I had been up against so much else this year, so I think like no matter what season you're in, there's like something about every race that like makes it feel special and like a really special accomplishment because you're always just dealing with different things in life. And it's just like the life of a runner, like just having to,
that's so true.
Having to show up for yourself and do the hard thing, no matter what else is going on in the periphery. So it's good stuff.
I love that.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Lisa, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on my website, thecastlerun.com, where I talk about rewriting a life that calls to me in the context of Disney and RunDisney, which is where I've found myself. You can also find me at thousandcircles.com, which is my fine art Disney website. And I'm very active on Instagram at The Castle Runner, where I share again, a lot of just sort of day-to-day life stuff, but also a lot of things that I think would be helpful, like the things that we've been talking about today, both in like the practical side of preparing for these sorts of things, and also the mental and psychological stuff as well.
Lisa, thank you very much for joining me. This was a wonderful conversation. We could keep going on and on and on, but I think an hour is plenty for now.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the clock, and I think we could certainly like keep talking for ages. But yeah, and I think we've done a really good job covering covering the good stuff. So
100%.
thank you. Thanks for having me. This was great.
That concludes this episode of Happily Ever Active. Speaking of having a plan after your race to keep you vaguely occupied, I am currently putting together a one-on-one rehab and coaching program designed to help young parents walk more, hurt less, and enjoy the magic of their vacation without burnout. Keep your eyes and ears open for when spots open up for this program so that you can be the first to join. In the meantime, if you're looking for a way to ease your way into training for your first RunDisney race, I have just the thing for you. This 30-day walking challenge is designed to start gentle and then progress in length and intensity so that you'll be able to conquer the Disney parks all day without burnout. Every day for 30 days, you'll be guided through your challenge with your walking workout for the day, an inspirational Disney quote, and a PDF worksheet to track your progress. You'll be amazed how much stronger and confident you'll feel by the end of the challenge. Now, if you're interested in this, go ahead and head over to www.fitforthemagic.com/30 to sign up for your 30-day walking program. If you love what you hear and you want to hear more, I encourage you to head over to fitforthemagic.com, where you'll find more resources on how to have a pain-free vacation. And if you enjoy this episode, please make sure to share the show with anyone who might benefit from it. And of course, please leave a rating or review in your favorite podcast app if you enjoyed the show. This helps me tremendously as I move forward with new episodes to come. I hope you'll tune in to learn more about how to have a pain-free, soreness-free, exhaustion-free vacation so that you can make magical memories with your loved ones.